So 2 days ago was National Fragrance Day, and I got to thinking, why don't I do a video in commemoration of the fragrances that I grew up with. Classic fragrances pre-90s or before the 2000s, so 90s, the 80s, 70s, and before. And I've got 20 fragrances here with 4 honorable mentions. I was planning on doing a 25, but didn't work out with 25. So we got 20 plus 4 classic fragrances, and I'm ranking them for you. If you want to find out what they are, please stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian with Smelling Great Fragrance Reviews. Let's jump right into this list. 20 fragrances, 4 honorable mentions. Couldn't get to do the 25 fragrances as I said, but these are all fragrances that I grew up with, enjoying from my dad, enjoying by myself. When I was a young man, I was really into smelling great, things like that. And these fragrances I speak about quite frequently. And these are the fragrances that have left an impression on me to appreciate this hobby of appreciating and wearing fragrances, just like you guys are doing. So 25 or 24 classic fragrances. The 4 honorable mentions are, we've got Geoffrey Beane's Grey Flannel, this one right here. Now this one to me is so piney, like smells like a pine forest come alive, but it's got a dominant violet leaf note along with oak moss and lots of green galbanum with some powdery touches of iris and vetiver. It's quite masculine, and I've heard some bad things about this one, but you know what? This fragrance does have a following, and to this day it does still smell great. It does smell dated a bit, but you've got to appreciate some of those fragrances that people or men were wearing back in the day. I mean, I wore this from my dad and my uncle back in the 80s when I was in my early teens, and they wore this stuff, and I love the little pouch it came in. I thought that was the most unique thing, a fragrance coming in a pouch. Back in the 80s, you know, I wasn't used to seeing that. So this one has left quite an impression on me. Unfortunately, it didn't make the top 20 because there are so many great fragrances, but don't sleep on this one, guys. This is great. In fact, when I go to Europe and go to Sephora, I sometimes see this selling at Sephora stores in France. So it still has a following. So if you don't know it, check it out. Grey Flannel from Geoffrey Beene, launched in 1975. So this next one is number 23. It's from the house of CARON, and this is YATAGAN, this one right here. So this one was launched in 1978. Now this one actually is like a pine forest, like a true pine forest. And the experience is when I wear this one, there's castoreum in the notes. You start smelling the very aromatic pine forest, like pine note in here, and then it gets into a little bit of like this like slight bit of urine type castoreum note, a bit animalic comes in. Then there's this green artemisia note, there's a woody note, oak moss, there's even galbanum in here. It's a very green experience, even though this bottle is, the juice is pretty amber colored. It's a very green fragrance. Unfortunately, like I said, there's way too many fragrances that to include this in the top 20, but it still smells really good. If you don't know, check it out. If you like a little animalic touch, this is definitely one for you. But to me, it smells like a true pine forest, like walking into a pine forest, and then you see a little animal there for that animalic smell. So that is YATAGAN from CARON, launched in 1978. And then going to the house of Chanel at number 22. This is Chanel ANTAEUS, a classic masculine, very animalic fragrance. Now a lot of these fragrances, I forgot to mention, do not smell like identical because they've been reformulated. The designers are known for reformulating fragrances, following IFRA rules and things like that. They cut out certain notes. So this to me smells a little different than what I remember smelling in the early 80s, and I love this bottle. This is one of my favorite bottles. I always thought this bottle was one of the sexiest fragrance bottles. Even as a young kid, I thought this was a very sexy bottle, and I still think it is. It's a great looking bottle. But this is Chanel ANTAEUS, launched in 1981. A big castoreum note. You've got oak moss, rose, labdanum, patchouli, myrrh. Very bold fragrance, very dark, very 80s, powerhouse 80s fragrance. Still smells great though. If you want to enjoy those early classics, the ones that your dads were probably wearing, then this is the kind of fragrance you should definitely check out. So this is Chanel ANTAEUS, launched in 1981, and that's at number 22. And then speaking of Chanel, we're going to the house again for another fragrance, but this one goes back in time. This is Chanel Pour Monsieur, this one right here, dating back to 1954. 5, classic smelling lemon, oak moss, vetiver, petitgrain, neroli. It smells to me like a very, very gentlemanly, classic smelling fragrance. Not necessarily the EDP, the EDT. This is the EDT version. It smells a little different to me. It doesn't smell as smooth like the EDP does. This smells a little rougher, which I kind of like. And then the word citronella comes to mind once in a while. I do have a video of this comparing it to the EDP with Dahlia. I'm not sure if you saw that, but I prefer this one over the EDP because I don't get much from the EDP. It's just too smooth for me. And I like it a little more rougher, and this one is awesome. So check it out. It's very, very classic, very citrusy. Again, the citronella comes to mind, as I said. And this is Chanel Pour Monsieur, launched at 1955. A very, very classic staple for men. And that's at number 21. Now we're going to the top 20 for another Chanel, and Chanel Egoiste at number 20. This one was launched in 1990, and they had originally launched another fragrance prior to this. I'm forgetting the name. If you remember it, please put it down. It's something with B-O-I-S, bois, like a wood something. Put that down. But this is Egoiste, launched in 1990, and this is a fragrance I wore way back in the early 90s. I love this fragrance. In fact, when I put my nose to this fragrance, I remember a certain period in my life at the very, very early 90s, and my parents had moved us up to the Central Valley, and I love this fragrance. I used to escape because my sister and my brother were younger, and I just was like, you know, rebelling against being with family and stuff. And this fragrance comes to mind a lot. This is Chanel Egoiste. You've got the notes of cinnamon, sandalwood, rose, tobacco, rosewood, vanilla. Again, it doesn't smell true to the original, but it still smells great because it's been reformulated. To me, it smells thinner, if that makes sense. So thinner as in lighter. All the depth has been removed. You can see through it rather than it's cloudy, if that makes sense. That is what I experienced with this one. So it's a thinner version of the original from 1990. But still a good fragrance. It's perfect for today's nose. It is classic. It's woody. Check it out, Chanel Egoiste at number 20. And next up, we're going to the house of a house that is rarely spoken about. This is a house called Ungaro, Emmanuel Ungaro. This is Pour l'Homme number 3, this one right here. This is such a great classic, everyday kind of scent. Not overwhelming, not a wimp either. To me, it smells like the vodka rose edition of Avantes. But this came way before. This came in 1993, and it's got rose, vodka, you've got lavender, sandalwood, geranium, those kind of notes in here. So it's an aromatic, spicy, woody fragrance. Very, very classy. I don't think Ungaro is making clothes anymore, Emmanuel Ungaro, but I think there are still newer fragrances that are being released from this house. I don't know them. I haven't seen them. But this one is still a classic. You can probably find a really cheap discounted version of this one out there somewhere, probably around $30 if that. So get it if you like a fresh, aromatic, woody fragrance that's sort of classic but still pretty modern. And that's at number 19. It's Emmanuel Ungaro's Ungaro Pour l'Homme 3, 1993 launch year. I also wanted to kind of warn you guys, I'm kind of dealing with a cold right now, so if I'm going a little slow, sorry about that. But this next one is number 18 from the house of YSL, Yves Saint Laurent, and this is KOUROS. Oh man, this is the animalic beast. This is a beast, of course, and it's animalic notes of civet. You got honey, leather, musk, oak moss, aldehydes, patchouli. This actually smells still pretty good, pretty darn good, and there's a following with this one. Men who used to wear the original wear this one, but I'm sure, and I know, it's nothing like the original. The original was so much more beastly than this wimpier take on the original, but still it smells very similar. You've got the animalic touches of the civet, it's got honey, and you've got the aldehydes, you've got the leather. You know what it reminds me of? A wimpy version of Etat Libre d'Orange's Rien Intense Incense. Without the incense, of course. This does not have any incense in it, but it has kind of like this similar family because there's also aldehydes here, and of course the Rien also has aldehydes. If you like an animalic fragrance from the designers, check out KOUROS from YSL. Again, this was launched in 1981, and it's currently at number 18 on this list. At number 17, we're going to the house of Dior, and this is Dior Fahrenheit. this one right here, the original, not the one that I really love, the Perfume, but this one is still the original classic fragrance, launched in 1988. Man, when this first came out, I was so obsessed with this bottle in the late 80s. I was just at the end of my teens. It was launched in '88, so I was 20 years old in 1990. So this is one of the fragrances I wore. I was obsessed with this bottle because it reminded me of fire. Of course, that's what they're going after: reddish, dark, black, all that good stuff. But this is a very, very unique fragrance for me. I love it because it's violet. It's a major violet note, and plus you got the leather, and you've got the spicy notes, and vetiver. You've got cedar, musk, all that good stuff. Once again, we've got a watered down version of the original, unfortunately, but still, if you are like craving the original scent, this will probably do you justice. The Perfume for me is much better. It goes into a gourmand territory, but the original is where it all got its start. And this is Dior Fahrenheit at number 17, launched in 1988. At number 16, going to the house of Aramis, this is Havana. Another fragrance I wore in the early 90s. This was launched in 1993. It came in a beautiful blue bottle of matte finish with a black cap. I love that bottle. I love that bottle. In 1993 is when it came out. In 1994 I wore it. I didn't wear it right away. And I had just started art school. I went to film school, and I used to wear this stuff over and over again, and just really, really love the tobacco. So 1993. Oh, actually, this was in 1994, so it is the year that I started going to film school, so that's probably when I was wearing it. And this is all about tobacco, patchouli, oak moss, cinnamon, fir, and then you've got mandarin, so some citruses. But these are in the Aramis fragrances. They're eau de colognes or colognes, but there's so much depth to these fragrances. Even though they're pretty light, they have a pretty good lasting power. They're close to the skin, but you can still pick up the scent. It doesn't like totally vanish or go away, even though they're pretty light fragrances. This is Havana. It's inspired by tobacco trade in Havana and cigar smoking and things like that. But it is a very powerhouse fragrance. I think this is the last of the powerhouse fragrances from this house, and then they kind of went a little wimpy after that. At least that's what I'm thinking. I can't remember exactly. But Havana is great. Check it out if you like tobacco fragrances that are classic. That is at number 16. And then we're going to the house of Chanel again, and this is Allure Homme, this one right here. Allure Homme, the original was launched in 1999. So this is from 1999, and this is one of the last fragrances from the 90s that I had picked up. I also picked up Chrome, although that came out in the mid-90s, which I don't have here. But because I kind of got bored of Chrome, but I'm not bored of these ones. Maybe I'll pick up Chrome again. But going back to Allure Homme, the original, not Edition Blanche, not the Sport, not any of those flankers. This is a great, great fragrance, designer fragrance for men, created by Jacques Polge. It contains the notes of vanilla, lemon, peach, tonka beans, ginger, and more. But to me, the tonka beans stand out here big time. It's all about tonka beans. It smells so good. Really, really does. It reminds me of Udin by Xerjoff, Mandarina Ducks Black, things like that that are like, you know, with a dominant tonka bean note along with like spicy ginger and, you know, tonka bean, and kind of goes into an aromatic territory a little bit. But great, great classy scent. This one actually is very, very classy to me, even though it has that vanilla, lemon, and things like that. I really do love this one. It's a great scent. So this is Chanel Allure Homme from 1999, and this is at number 15. And at number 14, going to the house of Cartier. This is Declaration, launched in 1998, created by Jean-Claude Lena. Last year they launched the Parfum, the Pure Perfume edition of this, and it really is sexy. But the original, the classic, is the one that got its start. This is from 1998. They launched the Parfum in 20 years later in 2018. Is that 20 years later? Yeah, that's 20 years later. And still love the scent. It's very, very aromatic and spicy. You've got cardamom, you've got bitter orange, you've got caraway or cumin, you've got birch, and lots of other notes. Just a very, very great scent. Very, very sexy, classy, masculine, but I think women can totally pull this one off. And it's a great, great it actually still smells great today, even though it's 20 years old. Now, some of the younger noses that don't like spicy fragrances, especially ones that have that cumin touch, might be opposed to this one, but I find it really, really nice. So check it out. This is Cartier Declaration from 1998. The only Cartier I have on this list, and created by Jean-Claude Ellena. That's at number 14. And then going to number 13, to the house of Dior. And this is the fragrance I picked up, brought back from Europe recently. This is Dior Jules, and this is originally launched in 1980, brought back in 2016, and then it's got notes of galbanum, fir, cyclamen, lots of green notes, and hedione. It is so good. It's so green too. To me, it smells almost close to this one here, but there's something about here that the galbanum here, it smells so vibrant and big and fresh. Spicy at the same time, and bitter too, because I like galbanum a lot in notes, and it really, really does stand out here. I pick up lots of whiffs of it, so it's unique because I don't see galbanum pop up in men's fragrances much. It's in Chanel number 19 for women and some other niche fragrances, but wow, this is so good. It doesn't have a full release here in the States, but I think at discounters you should be able to pick this one up. And if you like classic inspired fragrances, this is definitely one to try. So this is Dior Jules, and that's at number 13. Going to number 12, we're going to the house of Aramis again. This is Aramis 900. So I have a comparison video of this one with Dahlia. We compared this to Elixir. No. Yeah, we did. We compared this to Aromatics Elixir from Clarins. Clarins is owned by Estee Lauder. Aramis is also owned by Estee Lauder, and the two fragrances, these two fragrances, this one and Aromatics Elixir, were created by the same perfumer, and these two fragrances smell very similar. There are similarities to me, especially when you smell them from a distance, not comparing them side by side. And both fragrances, even though that one's targeted to women, this one's targeted to men, both can be reversed because I think they're very unisex, because it has a very dominant patchouli note. But this one has lots of rose, civet, oak moss, patchouli, really, really beautiful. Once again, this is eau de cologne. I mean, it's classic too, but I remember as a young kid when we had moved to Greece. I lived in Greece for about 6 months, and I met a woman there that was wearing something patchouli. I was only 9 years old, and that smell totally stood out for me. I remember that smell, and I think she was wearing Aromatics Elixir, because the oak moss patchouli combo in that fragrance is what really stood out. So that's why I like this fragrance. It's just really, really big on the classic patchouli era oak moss combo, and it's very, very, very sexy too. Again, it's an eau de cologne, so it doesn't scream big and thick and heavy, but it also stays. It stays on you. It's close to the skin. It doesn't project too much after it's drying down, which is perfect because you can wear something like this, and when you're walking around you get light whiffs of it, or somebody from your friends will get light whiffs of it. So this is Aramis 900. Check it out if you don't know it. I really love this one, and it deserves to be in a collection for guys who like classic fragrances. Next up, we're going to the house of Givenchy. This is Givenchy Gentleman, this one right here, originally launched in 1974, and this is so classic, so gorgeous, so sexy, so classy. This is all about patchouli, honey, leather, civet, bold, very, very bold fragrance. I love this. The dry down is absolutely amazing. It's very, very classic though. You gotta appreciate the classics, the powerhouses, the fragrances that were really, really big and loud in the 70s and 80s, because that's the kind of fragrance this is. It doesn't go out of style, at least to me it doesn't, but younger noses will probably not appreciate something like this. But give it a try if you like the powerhouses. There are some animalic touches here as well, so you're gonna have to like that. So this is Givenchy Gentleman, and that's at number 11. And now we go to the top 10, and we're starting with the fragrance that I first wore through my dad. This is Caron pour un homme de Caron, and this is the one that's from 1934. And this is so good. This is also very, very unisex. It's all about lavender, and lavender I tend to usually associate with feminine fragrances more, but this one is amazing. Actually, I should take that back. I usually associate lavender fragrances with more feminine fragrances as a more modern you know, toiletry products and things like that, they usually throw in lavender, but this was targeted to men back in the 1930s, and they thought lavender was for men. I mean, it's an herb, it's a spicy herb. So, but here it's very, very cozy. You've got the beautiful vanilla here with musk. And that's all it is. It's lavender, vanilla, and musk. It's so, so beautiful. And this I wore as a splash through my dad. He had it, and I loved it. I love the smell. The smell is amazing. It doesn't even smell tired either. So if you like lavender, if you like vanilla, and you like musk, you gotta try CARON Pour Un Homme de CARON. Amazing fragrance from the early 1930s that hasn't gone out of style today. So this next one at number 9 is from the house of Guerlain, and this is a vetiver. This would have ended up higher on the list, but I kind of got bored of it, but it still needs to be on this list because I have it, I love it. It's a great, great no-nonsense vetiver. This one came out originally in 1961, then they relaunched it in 2000, and in 2000, it was the first time I bought a full bottle of it, but it was in a different kind of bottle, and they'd gotten rid of that bottle. It was a more rectangular bottle. And then I bought so many bottles of this in this current bottle, the design, and it's a vetiver that doesn't go out of style. You've got vetiver, you've got tobacco, you've got bergamot and things like that. Such a great scent. I mean, it's just a wonderful, classy, masculine vetiver that doesn't scream overly masculine, but still it's very, very earthy and very, very woody, and also lots of green. And if you can see the color of the juice, it's a very, very green scent. So this is Guerlain vetiver at number 9, originally launched in 1961, and still smells great today. At number 8, we're going to the house of Van Cleef and Arpels. A recent rediscovery of this one. I remember it from my dad a long time ago, and recently, last year, I did a video with Dahlia, fragrances that were, you know, dad fragrances. I'll have a link to it in the info box. And I bought this fragrance just for that because I really love it. Because I smelled it in a shop in Europe, and they were selling it at Sephora in Europe. They sell a lot of these fragrances that they don't sell here in the States, and I'm like, wow, this still smells so, so good. This is Van Cleef & Arpels Pour Homme, launched in 1978. You've got rose, you've got leather, oak moss, lavender. It's aromatic, woody, spicy. So good. It is really, really good. To me, it smells more like a pine forest with roses thrown in rather than anything else, but oh man, it is so good. I can't believe how good this smells, even with all the formulations that happen with fragrances. It just smells great. Performance is, you know, moderate. It's not like Beast or anything, because we don't have Beast fragrances from the designers much anymore, but still, as far as smell goes, it's amazing. So Van Cleef & Arpels Pour Homme, launched in 1978, is at number 8. And speaking of aromatic fragrances, this one's from the house of Versace, the only one that I have on from Versace, and this is a fragrance that I keep loving more and more and more the more I wear it. And I originally wore it in the late 90s. This came out in 1998, I believe. This is Versace Dreamer. It could be 1997. I forgot to put the date down to remind me. But this is a great, great tobacco fragrance. But it's more of a aromatic fougere with tobacco. The tobacco leaves kind of smell like dried tobacco leaves, not the burned, smoky, ashy kind of tobacco, if that makes sense, like tobacco vanille. So it's more aromatic. You've got lavender, you've got tonka bean, you've got clary sage, citruses and things like that. Really, really great. I think the reformulations of this one have kept it perfect. Perhaps they used notes back in when it was first launched that, you know, didn't get regulated, so it still smells great. It doesn't have the beefiness as it used to have, but still, as far as smells goes, it is awesome. A great, great tobacco. This is probably my favorite Versace fragrance still. There are other fragrances I wore in the 90s that are completely discontinued and gone. This one's awesome. Check it out. This is Versace Dreamer, and that's at number 7. At number 6, we're going to the house of Guerlain, and this is Habit Rouge and Eau de Toilette Concentration. This was originally launched in 1965, 4 years after Vetiver, and then it was brought back or redone in 2003. And the notes here are lemon, rose, vanilla, leather. Beautiful. This was Guerlain's answer for men for Shalimar. So this was their men's version of Shalimar. And I can see it. I can totally see it because Guerlain is known for vanilla. I see vanilla pop up in their fragrances all the time. And this has vanilla. But this is not the EDP where the vanilla is more in your face. This is the EDT, where we have more citruses with the, of course, the lemon, the rose, and vanilla. So the vanilla is sort of like the third or fourth dominant note. You smell lots of vanilla, don't get me wrong, but the citruses are a lot bigger here compared to the EDP. But a great classy scent. I love this one. This is Guerlain Habit Rouge, or Habit Rouge, and it's originally from 1965, and that is at number 6. At number 5, this is the top 5, and this is a fragrance that still smells great today. This is Amen from the House of Mugler. Originally launched in 1996, launched as Angel Men, an answer to Angel for women, that was launched in 1992, which is a groundbreaking fragrance for women, a gourmand, and this is their men's version. They renamed it Amen because Angel Men kind of is very feminine sounding apparently. So 1996, lots of notes of caramel, coffee, patchouli, vanilla, honey, milk, gourmand, but beautiful and so potent. And not anymore, don't get me wrong, not anymore. When it first came out, it was beast. Like, you only need 2 sprays and it's like you're gonna be destroying everybody's noses around you. But it's such a great scent. It doesn't go out of style. It's very, very classy. Well, I wouldn't say it's classy. It's beast. It smells really, really earthy and gourmand. I wouldn't say classy, as I said, but something unique that they introduced for men 4 years after they introduced it for women, and then people copied it and things like that. I still love the way it smells. I prefer the original in its beast mode qualities, but still, as a scent, it smells great. So that is Amen at number 5. At number 4, we're going to the House of AZZARO, and this is AZZARO pour Homme. I do have a full review of this one if you're curious to check it out. This one, I remember through my uncle, he had a bottle of this when I was like 10 years old or 11 years old, and I used to steal sprays or sniffs from it, and just loved it. I like the bottle too because I still like the bottle, but I liked the bottle at that time too because it was nice and rectangular and you can hold on to it pretty nicely, although it was pretty big for my little hands back then. But what's great about this one, launched originally in 1978, there's lots of, it's an aromatic fougere, and I love fougères, but this is a totally classic fougere, and it also has lots of anise in it, licorice. So that's what makes this aromatic fougere so unique, and I love the way anise or licorice smells. You've got lavender, anise, oak moss, leather, citruses. It's beautiful, beautiful scent. It still smells great to this day, although it could smell kind of classic and dated for some people. But if you are open to exploring classic fragrances for men, this is definitely one to try. And I think this is definitely deserving of number 4 here on this list. So this is AZZARO pour Homme at number 4, originally launched in 1978. Next up, a recent rediscovery for me, and I had to put it at number 3. This is from the House of YSL. This is YSL pour Homme in this bottle. Originally launched in 1971, relaunched in 2011 in these square bottles, and this is a very, very beautiful sheep fragrance. You've got lots of lemon, oak moss, citruses, petitgrain, very, very citrusy, very, very, it's really good. I think the reformulation has been great, a successful reformulation. It still smells great to me. It really does remind me of the original in the reddish bottle, red cap bottle that they had back then, and that's why it deserves to be here. It's almost as good as Eau Sauvage, which we haven't seen yet on this list, but not as good. It also reminds me a little bit of this, but I find this one to be a lot better, smell-wise. So much better. It's so, so good. If you guys don't know this, check it out. It is great to have it. I'm so happy to have it. It's YSL's pour Homme. As I said, originally launched in 71, brought back in 2011, and that's at number 3. And speaking of Dior Eau Sauvage, I had to put that at number 2 because it is good. It is really, really good. This one's probably the more universally mass appealing today compared to a lot of these other ones, although some of them in here are still pretty universally mass appealing. Even for today's current generation of perfume or fragrance or cologne connoisseurs, I think it still smells pretty modern. This one originally was launched in 1966, and it has notes of lemon, bergamot, mint, oak moss, there's vetiver, and lots of other notes in here just to make a beautiful aromatic citrus concoction. Classy, masculine fragrance that doesn't go out of style. It's eau de toilette. It's easily worn. It's a signature scent kind of fragrance, and you can totally spray the heck out of it and still not overwhelm people. I find it to be a great summer scent as well. There's also the extreme version and the Perfume. Those are a little more intense. The extreme, I think I find more for fall. I think I would go any time of the year, but the Perfume is more intense, so I would do that one in the winter or cooler temperatures. But this one is an all year round freshie. It's such a great classy fragrance. So check it out if you don't know this one. I highly recommend this one. I love it. It's Dior Eau Sauvage from 1966. And last but not least, this deserves number 1. I don't speak about much about this one, but I think I'm gonna have to review it very soon because I just really love it. This is Guerlain's Heritage. Sorry I don't have a cap for this one. I have a tester bottle here. This originally launched in 1992, and it's so good. You know why I like this one? This is about patchouli, but you also have lavender, you also have sandalwood, and you've got oak moss. I think this is probably, to me, this is Guerlain's answer to Samsara. I don't know if you guys know that fragrance. I gave a bottle of that very, very young. I was like 19 or 20 to my mom. Saved up all my money because I love the way that Samsara smelled. Even though this is not very sandalwoody too much, because the patchouli dominates more than the sandalwood, I kind of think this is maybe perhaps the answer for men for Samsara. But it's such a great scent. It's very, very oriental. It's very, very woody, and it's classy too. It performs excellently. I don't know if you guys are fans of Heritage. Let me know. Do you like the EDT or the EDP more? There's both EDT and EDP versions available, but the EDT, man, it is awesome. Originally launched in '92 and still smells great today. So that is it. That is at number 1, Heritage by Guerlain. There you have it. What are your thoughts about this list? Do you like these fragrances, guys? And if you're very, very young, do you like fragrances like this, or do you prefer what's being released currently with brands and things like that? If you do like classic fragrances, also let me know how old you are. Like, are you young and you like classic fragrances? Are you older that you like classic fragrances? And then also let me know if I've missed anything, because this is what I have in my collection that I love that are classics, but there might be something missing that I should check out. So let me know what your favorite classic fragrances are, especially ones that are like pre-2000s, so the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, 60s, 50s, 40s, and on. Anyway, guys, if you have any questions or comments, please do list below. Other than that, please like this video, please share it. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye.